Hello, welcome to the showback of the work created during the Queer Letters project that was commissioned by Collective Encounters as part of their micro-commissions for emerging artists. This project aimed to explore the community power and action of the LGBT community in the past, the present, and maybe the future. This was my first solo-led project as a facilitator, and although the current restrictions of coronavirus made it slightly hard at times, I work with a great group and we work through it together. The idea for this project really started last year at Pride when I performed a letter to Sylvia Rivera, which you will see during the past letters. This idea sparked a real fascination within me of the art of letter writing and how it can be a form of activism in itself. Writing a letter means that you have to speak your truth onto a page, and that to me is something that is extremely activist-like. The group met on Zoom every Wednesday for an hour and a half, and each week we explored a different theme and set of talking points that would then influence the letter writing that would take place that week. I hope you enjoyed this project as much as we enjoyed making it. In week one, we interrogated and explored the history of our queer community. It's often hard to know where to start when talking about queer history, as so much of it has been manipulated or destroyed throughout the ages, especially to remove some of the most important voices of our community in the past that are so valuable for us today. We discussed groups such as Press for Change and Peter Fatchell, the activist, who have played such a huge part in changing the law in Britain and in many cases around the world to make the world a safer and better place for LGBT people. We then moved on to intersectionality, which is a word I come across first by listening to a talk at WowFest by Lady Phil. I think it's so important that we look as a community through the lens of intersectionality when looking at history, as we can then start to find why some voices have been silenced and why we have a responsibility to listen and go out and find these voices and tell these stories. Then moving on to something more local, we looked at how we tell our own history, how is it documented, and one example that I thought was brilliant is Sandy Hughes' archive, Fast Forward Rewind, which showcases so much footage from the 80s onwards of the queer community in Liverpool. It's important to recognise as young queer people that we will never understand the struggles that were happening in the 80s, the 90s, but we can definitely sympathise, and in the current state of affairs that is happening in our country and all around the world, it's definitely a time to stand in solidarity with those who went before. So the letter task for this week: ask the participants to write to someone within their lives, someone that would influence their lives from within the queer community of the past. It's important to look at the unwritten icons of our queer history, and maybe that's just somebody we looked up to when we were first, coming to terms with our identity, or it could be somebody such as Marsha P. Johnson or Sylvia Rivera.
Dear Anonymous, it's hard to know what to say when someone's actions change your life, when they constantly fought for your rights, even when faced with your family's and friends' strife. Never thought I could live my reality in actuality, never thought my fantasy would be someone I could actually be. But you helped take that self-doubt and awkwardness out of me, help me be confident, and help me be free. Showed me my body is still my home, even if it needs some work doing. Thought my queerness would be something I'd hide away from, but now it's something I love to be viewing. Wanted to turn a blind eye to injustice, but now it's something I'm always pursuing. Because there's so much that needs to be done. Like you, I hope I'm a man who can do it. Because trans boys have got more balls than most, and I'm so ready to prove it. Weirdly, this life is something I'm grateful for, even though I did not choose it. Because I appreciate being part of something so important. I appreciate the fact that by living, I'm fighting. And even though my confidence may sometimes need reinforcing, if there's a fire needed for the revolution, I'll help light it. Felix.
So this is to Sylvia Rivera, who was a trans woman who was in the Stonewall riots. Yeah, she's my idol. So I wrote this. Dear Sylvia, I sit in my room, looking forward to a day of queer celebration. I'm breathing freely. My mum is downstairs, my brother in the next room. I live in a happy home, a home of freedom. I believe the reason that all these things are possible is what you were part of 50 years ago. The Stonewall riots, the foundation of our modern queer liberation movement. Writing this, I don't know whether to say thank you or apologise. If you were here today, I'm not sure my or any of ours thanks would be enough to show how grateful we are. You'd probably much prefer action against what is still happening. How can 50 years on we act like the battle is won? 369 trans or gender diverse people were reported murdered from the 1st of October 2017 to the 30th of September 2018. There will have been many more people who have lost their lives who have gone unreported. This is rising from previous years. But looking around, I don't see this at the forefront no more. I see pride flags in windows of companies whose staff and policies still discriminate against LGBTQ plus people every day. I'm not sure how you would feel in the life of the modern day. We're missing you. We're missing the compassion of you. Or are we? Maybe we are just too busy acting like we have come as far as we can. You still continue to inspire many. However, as you know, if the agenda doesn't suit the majority, they don't want to hear. On the 28th of June, 50 years to the day since the first brick at Stonewall was thrown, a black trans woman took to the stage to remind the people that 1 in 3 black trans women in America will contract HIV in their life. She asked the audience where their outrage was. Sadly, the outrage was directed at her, with threats of the police being called and the bar trying to play music over the top of her voice. It's the reason that this pride comes with bittersweetness. I hold in my heart a strong belief that more education on the work of yourself and so many others, my generation will be reignited to fight for the right to live, as you and your friends did. This is what makes me so free to live today. There is, however, lots to celebrate, Sylvia. Since you've left us, we've seen the legalisation of gay marriage in England, Scotland and Wales, and the USA. There are now accessible support groups in Merseyside, like the Action Youth for Mermaids for trans young people. This is progress. Sylvia, every day you continue to live on within me. You are the reason I am so inspired to make the changes that you will be making if you were here. If there is such a thing as an afterlife, I hope you're living in bliss. Love, Anthony.
Carol M. Duffy. I'm writing to you to thank you for your acceptance, your strength and your courage. I believe that your purpose in this world goes far beyond poetry. You create art, emotion, and in many ways you are a therapist. Your ability to connect with people through words is unworldly, but through all of this you have an unwritten purpose, one that allows people to be themselves, find themselves. You may have done this unknowingly, but I truly believe that the emotion you pour into your work is honest and you receive an honest response. You voice your feelings without shame, and for that, your feelings are our feelings. For this, I thank you.
My letter to the past is to Derek Jarman. He was a director, writer, artist and gardener. When he was diagnosed with HIV, he bought a cottage on the Dungeness coastline called Prospect Cottage, and he created this amazing garden out of pebbles and driftwood and stuff that he found on the beach and in the shadow of the nuclear power station. And I think it's a really great metaphor for what we can create as a community out of the adversity that we face. I was part of the first generation to start school after Section 28 was repealed. You wrote in 1993, 10 years before, that nothing will turn the tide back now, and that Section 28 was a clarion call for unity. It was, and thousands of people who knew there was nothing immoral or wrong about the promotion of homosexuality fought for children like me and parents and teachers to be able to express themselves freely. Sometimes I forget how far we've come, but when I see celebrities and people in positions of power endorsing the view that I shouldn't or don't exist, I'm filled with the same dread no doubt you were filled with when Thatcher's delinquent government brought in Section 28. You continue to fight for the liberation of queer people despite and through your illness and pushback from the government, the public and the press. You knew that we were on the right side of history, and despite the fact that you are no longer with us, your words, films and your gorgeous garden at Dungeness will give us solace and project our movement into the future, whatever that may hold.
Week 2 focused on the present. In the present, there are many forms of activism from within the LGBT community. Some of the voices may come from theatre, while others may be direct action groups. These voices and groups include LGSM migrants, which aim to stop deportations in the UK, especially LGBT asylum seekers. Charlie Craggs, who is the creator of Nail Transphobia and this beautiful book, To My Trans Sisters. And finally, Travis Alabanza, who is a theatre maker and an activist. There was also an element of looking through the coronavirus lens and seeing what LGBT groups have done in relation to this, and there has been a few groups set up that have aimed to house LGBT people who may be homeless during this time, or just resources to keep our mental health in place and to help people through this time. I also invited a person who I found to be an activist, Danny from Think and Film, along to have a sort of Q&A with the group. The questions were great and explored what it meant to be an activist and how do we make work with specific communities. I then used a task that I was lucky enough to be introduced to in university, which took Bawal's image theatre task and adapted it into the current circumstances. You should see on the screen how I sort of framed the task, and I sent the participants off into breakout rooms to discuss specific issues that they themselves found in the queer community and come up with solutions that may be up to us as young people and activists to create and challenge. Letters this week could be seen as letters to the world, letters to the present, and letters to who we are now.
The present. I am terrified by the lack of acceptance in our present world. No two people are the same. We should take this into consideration when meeting children, adults and seniors. Where are the safe spaces, platforms and the organisations? Where are the professionals who stand up for the minorities? I am upset by the fact that people who have positive changes on this earth are still ignored. I want this to be considered, thought about, changed. Change can only be positive.
A letter to the present. People need to understand that it isn't a choice, a trend. Real lives are at stake. Every tweet, shout, smack, punch, stab starts somewhere. Someone sows the seed of hate. Every article claiming that trans people are a threat needlessly stokes the fires that get people kicked out, knocked out, killed. There is no trans lobby, just people trying to live.
To my modern day queer community, throughout my life I have learned through my own education about the strong queer trans people from Marcia to the modern day activist, how now just being ourselves can be activism. Visibility, which I grew up learning to fear, is cherished and inspiring to me. We as trans people face abuse and harassment that makes it nearly impossible to walk out the door. However, It's even worse for our fellow black trans family who now have a life expectancy of 35 years old, where most will be starting a family. Black trans people are being murdered at an alarming rate and the media has failed to cover. We find out through underground tweets. This isn't the future Martian or many other activists have fought for. So this is for my modern day trans, non-binary queer people, opening pathways in careers where there are far few of us, to walk in the street of a city. You have all taught me self-love and to embrace authenticity in the binary we live in. You all will continue to inspire as we stand in solidarity, on the street or on social media, against turf such as J.K. Rowling and even backlash from our own queer community. We have to stand in solidarity because all we have is to educate ourselves on our own experiences because the education system has failed us. That we will be discriminated against, that our existence will be policed by many others. So I thank the modern day queer community who are in my life or see on social media that remind me our existence is valid and certainly not for debate. I thank you because you have helped me discover who I am. I thank you because we continue the fight for just living our lives and being our authentic selves and nothing can stop us. Thank you.
Dear world, I'm terrified. I sit inside most nights teary-eyed, afraid of the system outside. Living is easier inside the mind. I'm terrified. I'm 18 years old. I'm a queer person who uses they them pronouns. I'm trying to make it as an artist and a theatre maker of sorts, but with all these factors and labels that I should and would embrace. I can never forget. I'm terrified. I'm not alone in my fear. I see my friends becoming more cautious of the late night walks home. I see that our fear has made its way so deep into our brains as queer people that often feels like there's no other way. But there can be. Surely there must be another way. In my area, when I was growing up, I used to attend many youth clubs. The Annie Youth, the Vernon Sangster, and countless other places where I made friends and memories. The friends I made then are now the same people I'm afraid to walk by on the street. Sometimes I decide I'll give them a smile, but it's usually met with dead eyes and a feeling of hostility. It might be my dress. It might be the fact I'm very obviously a queer person. I wish the world facilitated the conversations between young people. I wish that youth clubs never got closed down before I could go along as the me I was hiding for so long. Under this Tory government and its evil austerity scheme, I doubt we will see this, but we must have hope. As a community, hope is at our core. Dear world, use our hope to influence and to guide the world into a place that is safer and more inclusive. Dear world, I don't want to be terrified no more. I want to talk to the friends of times before without them seeing the dress I wear as if it's something to deplore. Dear world. The final and third week focused on the future of the LGBTQ community. As I'm sure you can imagine, it's quite difficult to talk about something that hasn't happened yet, but this week we focused on this idea of an ideal world. For us as queer people, we have for so long been living in a world that has not been designed for us, and looking forward, when are we going to see this? Nobody really knows, and we can only hope and fight to a better future. The letters this week, therefore, are letters to those in the future. Some may be instructions to the future, some may be questions. This was for the participants to decide and explore.
Dear future Felix. Hi Felix. I hope the future's okay and the Conservatives are completely out of power. I hope we are admitting to the mistakes of our past and present. Well, my present in 2020. I hope America is too. Who has Donald Trump as their president? in 2020. I hope you are happier in your body, and I know this has been a long journey, but I know how worth it must be to be able to see yourself properly, to be able to dance properly, to be able to relax your muscles properly, and to not have to wash something you wear every single day. I hope you've finally grown more than a rat tash, and I hope you can still sing. I hope the world around you is kinder, and you can see more of it now you've grown your wings. I hope more of the world is safer for you, and I hope it is for all other vulnerable people too. I hope you still have all the people you love, and have met more along the way. I hope you have a loving and warm place to stay. I hope you've found how to properly love yourself. I hope your trauma's found a comfortable place on the shelf. My heart breaks at this world, but I hope it's fixed in yours. I hope I'm in awe of all the things you've explored. I hope what you're doing is helping people, and I hope you've made enough money to buy Nana a stair lift. I know you're always trying to give everything to people, but I hope you've kept hold of all your gifts. Lots of love, Felix.
Thank you for being yourselves. Thank you for fighting for our rights. But I want to know, are black trans people not being murdered anymore? Are the bills against us? Is it still illegal for us to travel in certain countries? I want to know if the life expectancy of a black trans person has risen. I want to know if we are safe. I want to send you love. I want to send you happiness. I want to send you light. I want to send you strength. I want you to rebuild our community, where we still fight, where many others are still against us. I want you to find something that means something to you. I want you to have a career. I want you to be successful. I want all the best to you. Is it easier? Is it gone harder? Will I experience riots? Will I face hardship from the government? Is it easy to access hormone replacement therapy? Is it free? But I want you to know that I hope we all have found peace and happiness. I hope we've achieved equality. I hope the activism and fight still continues.
To the future world in front of me. My role in this world as a daughter, friend, sister, and student is only noticed to an extent. In this world, I am a tiny portion with big dreams and aspirations. I want to see people happy, full of love, passion, and acceptability. But unfortunately, I don't see this. I see pain, suffering, and unhappiness, and I find this concerning. I do see positivity. Through education, through love, and through light, we can be happy, healthy, and support one another. To the future world in front of me, in front of us, in front of time. We can accept everyone for who they are, for what they love, for what they believe in, but we need to listen, to learn, and to accept.
So that is all the work created. I want to say thank you to all the participants who took part in this project. And I think it's been such an amazing time to reflect and to ask questions of our queer community. I also want to thank Collective Encounters who have commissioned this project, as during this time many artists are struggling to get work, and I feel extremely grateful that I have had an opportunity to facilitate. And finally, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.